In celebration of Godzilla's 70th anniversary this year, I'm going to be covering several G-Man facts. They range from obscure facts on the movies to the most random pieces of Godzilla information. So, without further ado, let's begin, because we got a lot of good knowledge to cover. Get it? Like G knowledge? Titanosaurus' roar was actually used in the SNES game Super Metroid for the monsters Phantom and Crocomere. Both Adam Wingard and Takashi Yamazaki, the guys who directed GXK and GVK, and -1 respectively, have both stated that their cats were a big influence on their depiction of Godzilla. I can see it in JXK, where Godzilla sleeps in the Coliseum, but what type of cat does Yamazaki have? Always Sunset on 3rd Street 2 features a dream sequence where Godzilla makes an appearance. This was the only time we saw Godzilla on screen in the decade-long gap between Final Wars and Godzilla 2014. Furthermore, Sunset on 3rd Street 2 was directed by Takashi Yamazaki, the man who would go on to direct -1 16 years later, and you can see the influence of this version of Godzilla had on -1 in terms of its design. Godzilla Save the Earth, released in 2004, was supposed to be a much bigger game, with a grander story and much more variety of characters. One of those characters was Biollante. In fact, the entire character of Biollante was done, but it was ultimately scrapped because Toho never approved it, and because of time issues. The name Gojira, the Japanese name for Godzilla, is a combination of the Japanese words gorilla, which means gorira, and whale, Kujira, which actually can be seen in its design for the original film, a bit of a whale gorilla. There was also a rumor that the name Gojira was the nickname of a very big employee at Toho, but those rumors were never confirmed. The 1998 Godzilla movie has two characters that are parody of film critics. They are Mayor Ebert and his advisor Gene. In the film, they was portrayed as incompetent and pathetic.
Didn't we agree that we weren't going to have any sweets until after the election?
Back off, Gene.
The reason for this was in order for the director, Roland Emmerich, to get back the two famous movie critics, Gene Sissley and Roger Ebert, for giving Emmerich's last movies, Stargate and Independence Day, pretty negative reviews. The two noticed this parody and had this to say about it.
What did you think about Mayor Ebert and his sidekick, Gene?
I thought that seemed petty.
Yeah, the only good thing about Mayor Ebert and his sidekick was that at least Godzilla didn't step on it.
Well, but Roger, I fully expected that to happen. And I think the audience is waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, maybe they should have included that.
Again,
bring him on stage, at least squish him, right?
Exactly. There are missing scenes.
Godzilla vs. Ebra, Horror of the Deep, was originally supposed to be a King Kong movie. However, when Toho pitched it to the American studios, they didn't like it, so they used their own Godzilla instead. It's pretty evident in the film, with how Godzilla is infatuated with women, something very not Godzilla, but very Kong-like. There is a real-life dinosaur named after Godzilla. In 1997, paleontologist Kenneth Carpenter found a holotype specimen for a Gojirasaurus and named it after Godzilla. Godzilla was police chief for a day. Earlier this year, on the 19th of March, Godzilla became police chief to help promote road safety. Godzilla has a Hollywood star. In 2004, in celebration of Godzilla's 50th anniversary, the Final War suit was brought to Hollywood, where he received his Hollywood star.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly welcome to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Godzilla!
Godzilla has never, and will never, at least according to Toho, eat people. Godzilla's appeared in My Hero Academia. Kinda. Godzilla is a pro hero that appears in My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, the movie. He wears an Elvis-inspired coat, and it's only on screen for a few seconds, but it was a neat reference. Also, the name of his quirk is Toho. Wonder what that's alluding to. Godzilla was originally supposed to be a giant octopus. However, the idea was rejected. The air holes in front of the necks of the Showa-era Godzilla suits that the actors used to breathe out of and see through are gills, apparently. Godzilla's roar was created by rubbing a resin-covered leather glove over the strings of a double bass and then slowing down the recording. The original Godzilla suit weighs around 220 pounds and is made of rubber, making it incredibly hot and cumbersome to wear. The burning Godzilla suit had over 200 lights on it for the glow and had a ventilation system for carbon monoxide to spew out, which actually caused the suit actor to pass out several times during filming. The Showa Mechagodzilla suit is still around and in pretty decent condition. Godzilla 1998 is implied to exist in the GMK universe. One of the characters mentioned a Godzilla attacking New York, but actually it wasn't Godzilla and the Americans just got the creature mixed up with Godzilla. Godzilla fights Zilla in Australia in 2004's Final Wars, coincidentally the same place where the failed 1998 sequel takes place, where you can learn more about in my video. Go watch it after this one. Mothra was the first kaiju Godzilla fought that was female, an insect, and capable of flight. King Ghidorah's outpost in King of the Monsters is a reference to a similarly named outpost in the movie The Thing. A lot of the outposts in King of the Monsters are references to a lot of things. Godzilla Final Wars is the first movie in the franchise to have most of the soundtrack written by an American composer, which definitely contributed to the movie's, Hollywood feel. Originally, in Godzilla vs. Mothra, Mothra was going to die and come back in sequel as Mecha Mothra, but that was scrapped. Godzilla and the Lost Continent, a scrapped Godzilla comic, was entirely done and completed, but never came out because bookstores didn't want any more Godzilla books after the critical reception of the '98 film. Jet Jaguar's last big screen appearance was in 1973 with Godzilla vs. Megalon, his first and only. However, he's made some cameos as a toy in Final Wars, and graffiti of his arm can actually be seen in the New Empire. Despite his lack of motion picture appearances, he's a staple in many Godzilla shows like Monster Island and of course Single Point, where he's basically the main character. Godzilla and Gamera, Japan's most beloved and famous monsters. A lot of people want to see them cross over, but a lot of those people don't know that they actually have. In September of 2023, Godzilla and Gamera crossed over in a mobile game. Yeah. Godzilla vs. Kong 1962 doesn't have an alternate ending. There's a pretty famous rumor that the original Godzilla vs. Kong has two endings. One played in the east where Godzilla wins, and one played in the west where Kong wins. Well, that's wrong. There's only the one ending where it's more of a Kong victory. Shin Godzilla is canonically in a state of constant pain, suffering, and agony from its mutation. Have fun. The lightest Godzilla is TriStar Godzilla, who only for Godzilla, weighs 500 tons. The heaviest Godzilla is Godzilla Earth, who weighs over 100,000 metric tons. Bagan was planned to be included, but then subsequently scrapped for 9 different films. 9 different times Bagan is supposed to be in a project, but then scrapped. Poor guy, man. But it did appear in the video game Super Godzilla, where you can learn more about in the video I made. Godzilla is a baller. The first 2 games in the Pipework trilogy of Godzilla games, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters and Godzilla Save the Earth, are rated T for teens by the ESRB, but the third game, Godzilla Unleashed, is rated E10+ by the ESRB for everyone 10 and over. Despite being the first entry to the Heisei era of Godzilla films, The Return of Godzilla was actually released during Japan's Showa period, which lasted from 1926 to 1989. Spoiler warning for GXK, skip here to avoid it. Mothra wasn't originally planned for GXK. She was supposed to be an original monster called Phosphora. Basically, if Legendary couldn't get the rights to use Mothra for the film, they would have used Phosphora, which would have been literally the exact same as Mothra, just it's not Mothra. But Legendary did get the rights to use Mothra, so we got Mothra in the movie. Every Monsters movie is either released in March or May. A Muto head can be seen in that bad, high-budget fan-made Pacific Rim movie, Pacific Rim Uprising. Godzilla Ride Giant Monsters Ultimate Battle is a Godzilla amusement park in Tokorozawa, Saitama, Japan. The fun fact is that the design for the Godzilla and the attraction is the blueprint for the -1 Godzilla. Bonus fact, the writer, director, and kaiju designer for the ride was Takashi Yamazaki, the director of -1. Godzilla and Evangelion have crossed over several times. One of those times for an amusement park in Japan called Godzilla vs. Evangelion, the Real 4D. In the ride, Shin Godzilla and the Evangelion units fight until King Ghidorah appears, sporting a brand new design that fans have dubbed Shin Godzilla, where then Shin and the Evangelion units team up to defeat Ghidorah. Another bonus fact, the ride is 17 minutes long. For Shin Godzilla, a giant animatronic puppet was made, but it went unused in the movie. Monster vs. King Ghidorah is 160 meters tall, has a wingspan of 244 meters, and weighs 141,000 tons. Godzilla actors love to get jiggy. Godzilla would need about 215 million calories every day to survive. That's how much a normal person would eat in around 100,700 days, or 294.5 years. Shin Godzilla's first on-screen appearance wasn't in his movie. It was instead on the show Crayon Shin-chan, one of Japan's most popular and long-running anime. In one episode, they collaborated with Toho in promotion for Shin Godzilla in 2016. Shin Godzilla tries to destroy the city, but loses when he gets a fart in the mouth. Also in the episode, his atomic breath is blue, in order to not spoil the film's purple atomic breath. In 1957 Toho film, Tokyo is a Fine Place, there was a baseball team called Tokyo and Gears, with the shoulder pad featuring the kaiju's head. This is probably just a little Easter egg, but I like to think that the movie actually takes place in the Showa era. Here's some early concept art of Violante. She was originally going to be more flower-like, with the face of a woman. The other design takes inspiration from the Return of Ultraman monster, Legon. The spines on the back of Mecha King Ghidorah's neck was the inspiration for Mechagodzilla's dorsal plates in Godzilla vs. Kong. Toho held the funeral for Godzilla after Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Miki Sagusa can be seen in Godzilla's single point. Here she is watching Hedorah fly over her head. Godzilla and Kong have actually fought. For the 80th Academy Awards, clips of different movies characters living in NYC was made for it. In it, you could see Zilla and Kong fighting. It was only for a few seconds, but a Zilla and Kong fight did happen. The Millennium Era was never supposed to happen. Toho ended their Heisei era in order to make way for the American Godzilla. However, after that movie came out, Toho hated it and wanted to show the world the real Godzilla. In concept art for King of the Monsters, you can see Gamera. Does this mean he was playing for the movie or just a funny Easter egg? Who knows. Also, in this concept art, we can see Gigan and Kumanga. Space Godzilla design was heavily inspired by Super Godzilla from the SNES game Super Godzilla. You can see Batra's head in Pacific Rim Uprising. Space Godzilla is the heaviest monster in the entire Godzilla franchise, weighing 720,000 tons. The inspiration for Violante's name came from a passage in the poem Chanson d'Automne by the 19th century French poet Paul Verlaine. Specifically, it was this passage, De Violon de l'Automne. He combined the word violon with the Japanese katana character and got Violante. So the bio part was a complete coincidence that it just happened to match with bio, like bioengineering. For the Return of Godzilla, Toho made a 16-foot tall animatronic that weighs 1.2 tons and cost $475,000 to build. It was mainly used for close-up shots. However, due to problems with the mechanisms in the suit, its eyes would sometimes go cross-eyed in some shots. In order to decide what monsters they would use in Final Wars, the filmmakers took Godzilla toys out of a box and put them on a table. The process took hours and they finally got the perfect lineup they wanted. In Godzilla Unleashed, in Brawl mode, if Heisei Godzilla reaches critical mass, it will temporarily transform into Burning Godzilla. The final shot of Shin Godzilla isn't CGI, it's an actual real-life prop. Additionally, at the end of that prop, you can see a human mouth. The first ever Godzilla movie to win an Oscar was -1. It won it in March for its visual effects and is an absolutely monumental moment for the Godzilla franchise. Godzilla has died 5 times, first in the original, then in vs. Destroyer, again in 1998, and GMK, and his latest death was in -1. In Godzilla Generations, you can play as a giant Dr. Zerozawa who heals by praying and attacking with laser eyes. Shin Godzilla has the longest tail, with it measuring over 1,000 feet. One of the coolest designs for Godzilla was this. It's a scrapped Final War design, and I mean, come on, look at it. It'd make a great, nightmare or horror Godzilla. But with how goofy Final Wars is, I'm glad it wasn't used. It would have completely conflicted with the movie's tone. Batra was originally a monster called Gigamoth, an evil radiated Mothra. The idea didn't fall through though, but it served as a prototype for Batra. The Godzilla movie with the most Japanese Academy Prize nominations is Shin Godzilla, with 10. Mecha King Ghidorah is so big and heavy that a studio actor can't operate it. Instead, it was operated by wires. Finally, our last fact. If there's 2 things you don't know about the Earth, one is me, and the other is Godzilla. So those were 17 Godzilla facts that cover nearly all aspects of the franchise. Did you learn anything new? Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Long live Godzilla. Here's to another 70 years.